fortunate to have with us one of the world's foremost practitioners on this opening, world chess champion Anatoly Karpov.
Hello.
So Anatoly, lately you've begun to favor the Caro-Kann rather a bit more in your important games.
Yes, former time I played more Spanish and E5. But then I discovered that Caro-Kann is not so positional and solid. Caro-Kann became more dynamic and combinational, and so I found many interesting possibilities. Like today, we are going to discuss a game with Kamsky, in which I played one of the biggest novelty in last years, and then we shall discuss game with Hort. I played with White, and then the last game with Kasparov, which we played in the Navis tournament.
Now, all three of these games have rather different character. The game with Kamsky, you mentioned this is one of the greatest opening novelties in the last few years. The moment which you actually played this was not over-the-board discovery. This was pre-game analysis?
Yes. I had some problems thinking when I played one of the games with Kasparov 3 or 4 years ago, and so I was afraid of continuation. And then I discovered at home that this is a nice possibility.
After e4, black plays c6. Okay, white plays d5, d4, occupying the center in very classical style. Okay, now black plays d5. Now, it's my understanding the reason you prefer the Caro-Kann to the French defense is that you're able to occupy the center and contest white's control without blocking in your queen's bishop.
Yes, I believe that white has different possibilities now, of course, just to close the center with e5 or defend the pawn on e4. And then black has different possibilities also, but the main...
Okay, the main line is knight to d2?
d2, yes, and then d takes e4, knight takes e4.
And now, of later years, you've preferred the most solid continuation for black, the Smyslov variation, knight to d7.
Knight to d7, yes, this is more solid. Of course, there is one trap. Once in Chess Olympiad, Keres won with queen e2, and automatically his opponent played knight g to f6 and knight d6 mate. So this was one game.
This is very exciting.
Yes, this is funny.
But of course, queen e2 is not the main try for white.
Yes, of course not.
But it makes for a nice humor. Okay. But the most serious tries for white here now are knight to f3, knight to g5, and bishop to c4. And each one of these, we will go ahead and take a look at a sample game from your previous play. The game with Kamsky continued with knight to g5.
Knight g5, yes. This is quite new. I mean, in chess theory of this variation, it has maybe 15 years, not more, even less. Knight g5. Interesting idea. The main line, of course, main threat is if black plays h6, then knight e6, and then mate on h5 after taking the knight.
So for such a solid opening, this opening is full of little tricks that you have to be careful for in the early stages.
That's right. That's right. And then after knight g5, black plays knight g to f6.
Okay, and now he continues with bishop to c4?
No, bishop
d3.
d3. Yes, this is the idea. Again, h6 is not possible because of knight e6.
Okay,
and mate with the bishop.
We'll show our readers that if f e6, then bishop to g6 mate. Okay.
Yes. So white is continuing to make threats to black king. So bishop g3 and then e6.
And black plays e6, avoiding the trap.
Yes, no mate anymore.
Okay, white continues his development. And also the nice thing for white in this variation is that he keeps a lot of pieces on the board.
Right.
And doesn't exchange so much.
And of course bishop is closed now. The main idea of Caro-Kann was at the beginning just to open the bishop and to have possibility to develop bishop as a first. But now you see the bishop is closed by knight and the pawn, But of course, white lost temp with knight to g5.
Okay, so after e6, knight back, then black continues development with bishop to d6.
Yes, again, if you play now h6, there is no mate, but white has good initiative after taking here, pawn takes and bishop g6, king e7, and then the king side is blocked and king in the center.
And white just mobilizes his forces and brings them forward.
Yes, some initiative. That's why black is playing first bishop to d6.
Okay.
And then queen e2. Again, some threats. So h6. Knight to e4.
Okay, now here you exchange knights.
Yes, now.
And he takes to the queen. Now, of course, this sets the trap that if you were to castle, this would be a very unpleasant idea, right? We'll just show our readers that if you were to castle, queen to h7 mate.
Yes.
This would be a very successful opening strategy for white.
So we can say that queen e4 is preventing castle for black. And so knight f6. Now white has two possibilities, just to come back with the queen on e2 or queen h4. And actually this line I was afraid of when I played the first game with Kasparov in Amsterdam. And Kasparov just came back with the queen to e2. Here, just you see that this is quite unpleasant, because black, if black make castle, then bishop takes on h6, and then you have king in danger.
Okay, let's just take a look. If he castles, the idea of this is that now white would get a very dangerous attack by sacrificing with bishop takes h6.
Right.
After pawn takes and
then
queen takes, he has two pawns for the bishop. Okay. And he has several pieces visiting the black king.
That's right. And knight g5 is very unpleasant next move. Or white can just castle alongside and to continue their attack.
So this, of course, isn't something you spent much time considering.
And then if you don't castle, if you play, for instance, bishop e7, but then white can play queen to g3. And then there is no castle because bishop takes on h6. Which is, again, unpleasant. And
so it's easy to see why in your first game with Kasparov, who especially is known as a fearsome attacking player, it's very easy to understand why you would want to avoid this.
Yes. No, during this game I was thinking that black can play c5 just to attack center, but still it's unpleasant. It's too slow. White can castle or bishop e3, and then long castle again.
And you still haven't solved the problem what to do with your own king.
And bishop c8 as well.
Yes.
So we got this how to say paradoxical idea.
That's a paradoxical idea.
Paradoxical idea, yes.
And by we, you mean you're working with our friend Misha Podgayets?
Yes, international master Mikhail Podgayets from Odessa.
Now, of course, here in America, I tell people that Misha is a very well-kept Russian secret. And he's probably one of the strongest non-playing chess players in the world, as far as... He doesn't play so much actively, but his understanding of chess is at a very, very high level, it seems. Yes,
I think he has no character as a fighter, but he understands chess very well, and for a long time he's a theoretician, and in practice he is not so good, but in theory and as a trainer he's very, very strong. And so we analyzed this position, and then we found fantastic idea. King e7.
Now, I have to tell you, my own second, I have a second for when I play in tournaments, Paul Hodges. You met him, a correspondence player, okay?
Yes.
And Paul saw this game, and he just absolutely couldn't believe it. He's, Ron, you have to see this game. I'm like, what? And honestly, when you look at this position, the last piece that you would expect to move is the king. I mean, the bishop, the pawn, and castle, you know, move the knight to offer a queen trade, move the queen. The last piece that would come to mind to actually move is the king.
Right.
So this is really a fantastic concept.
And,
but again...
And even in the center.
Yes, especially in the center. You know.
So you could expect maybe, I don't know, king d7 just to escape on the queen side. But king e7 just in center.
And to move into a pin. This is even more incomprehensible.
Yes.
And at first it looks like, well, maybe he was going to castle and changed his mind and touched the king and had to move it, you know.
No, I remember face of Gatta. He stared at the board and he couldn't believe his eyes. First he thought that I was just kidding him, you know, but then he started to think, and then he found out that this is not such a bad idea, I think. And this is quite serious.
This is actually a serious move. Yeah.
Very serious, yes, because black is threatening just to play g5.
The white queen has no squares, okay, except
only queen h3 and then g4 fork.
And so suddenly the stroke is actually very serious.
Yes, and it's not so easy to escape, because possibility knight d2, for instance, just escape of the fork, but then black plays g5, queen h3 only move, and then black plays e5. And it means that that black has much better developed.
And then if you were to continue here, then he goes queen e3 to pin the pawn, then you could even continue on with knight d5, harassing the white queen.
Yes, because this bishop is much worse now than this one.
Yes.
Because this is closed with the knight.
Plus, you're the one that's actually going to play rook over and king back and mobilize much more rapidly. You know.
That's right. And so for instance, I need just two moves, rook e8, king f8, and so this is artificial castle.
Yes. So actually, the whole idea is actually brought about because the white queen actually has a very limited number of squares.
Yes, yes.
So in a way, it's like you're using your king to actually attack the white queen.
To trap the white queen.
Yes,
yes.
This almost seems illegal. And so this was actually voted as one of the most significant novelties of, like, certainly the last 6 months, but probably over the last several years. This is one of the most incredible opening discoveries.
Yes, no, but the same period, Murray played a very nice novelty in Russian defense, and so also just white attacked knight in the center, and so he left this knight without defense, without protection.
And that too is fantastic, because that had been years and years everyone had automatically retreated the knight.
No, that position was just for maybe 150 years known, and nobody considered this move. It was novelty on the move on move 4.
So this is incredible as well.
Yes, yes.
So it shows that even with all the computers and chess, that there's still new things to be discovered.
Something for mankind.
Yet. Yes.
And so after long thinking, Kamsky played knight to e5.
Now with knight to e5, of course, he's offering up a sacrifice of a pawn for you.
Yes. And probably this is the only way how white can struggle and
fight for the initiative,
just to try to find something. And so black...
So of course you have to accept, otherwise there's no point to you.
Yes, of course. Black took, then check on a5.
Now of course the check's important, because you need to attack the king and the pawn.
Right.
So he played c3?
He played c3, yes. This is better than to defend with bishop. Queen took on e5.
And now he played bishop e3.
And bishop e3, and now you can see the position. So white sacrificed pawn. They have two bishops. They have open position, but still there are a lot of resources for black to defend this position. And so queen b4 check is main threat. That's why I had to play b6. And Kamsky made a long castle. I played g5 just to avoid bishop f4. Kamsky played queen a4, and this position is very complicated, and I think we need much more games just to test who is better in this.
So actually at this point you've left the realm of theoretical discussion, and it actually just became a struggle between you and the young rising star Gatta Kamsky.
That's right.
And in this particular case, as the defender with black, you were able to nullify his initiative, and then after difficulties on both sides and time trouble, finally you emerged victorious after about 50 moves or so.
Yes, this was a game with some mistakes, but very interesting and very sharp, so which is not usual for Caro-Kann defense. Tournament in the 80s was like Linares for our days, one of the strongest tournaments, and leading players participated there with great pleasure. And this was tournament with many interesting games, and normally it was open fight over the chessboard. That time White had in mind another positional idea, just to play for the bad bishop on c8, and I played with White this line.
Okay, now here we see you actually playing the white side against your own favorite opening. This is a little unfair, isn't it?
No, but that time I played Caro-Kann defend mostly with White.
Mm-hmm.
And
so you've had tremendous experience both trying to beat the Caro-Kann and supporting this opening.
Yes. No. Now I have like in Spanish. I have big experience with White and Black, and so you know so many fine things, and this is very good.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now one of the most popular continuations is actually bishop to c4 on the fourth move. So here we're looking at knight f3.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So then Black plays knight f6, knight takes. Mm-hmm. And now the main idea is how to stop this bishop from getting out. Mm-hmm. And knight e5. So this was quite often played that years. And now, of course, if you force e6, then
the bishop
you
is
fulfilled
bad.
your idea. Bishop is bad.
So that idea would be seen if he tried to play g6. Because basically this bishop has two ways to come out, right? He can either play e6 and come out this way, or g6 and fianchetto. So if he goes for g6, then we'll see the idea you were just discussing, right? You play bishop to here, make him play pawn to e6, and now we can see that he's boxed in this one, right?
That's right. And but that's why Black started to play bishop e6 to prevent bishop c4.
Now, was this actually your discovery? I saw you played this with great success in a match with Sokolov at one time. You played bishop e6
Bishop
with black.
e6 is not so bad, but still this is passive, because then you need another move just to bring bishop active in active position.
White plays c4 and White gets a little more space, a little more free hand later in the middle game.
Right. And another possibility is just to kick out this knight immediately from e5. Mm-hmm. And then White could play bishop e5 or knight to d3. If knight d3, then g6, and this is slightly better for White. I had such game with a grandmaster from Holland, Gennady Sasonka, with g6. And he could equalize the game.
White has a little more space, but maybe Black can play c5 at one moment. And
c5 or e5, yes. Black has two ideas, and it's not easy to stop.
Mm-hmm. I think I had a training game with Fritz, the computer, like this, where I was able to play e5 with Black, trade a lot of pieces, and simplify down to a draw, which, for Black, it's okay.
Yes.
Now, at that time, though, theory wasn't so well developed, and Hort just mechanically went ahead and said, oh, I can develop my bishop, and he developed his bishop.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And then this is, it seems to be very early, but c3, yes.
Just to go ahead and secure the center, right?
Right.
And now, not feeling in any danger, he went ahead and just played e6. He figured
but what to do? Mm-hmm. This is the question. This is the point.
Well, he has to do something to continue his development with this bishop.
Just to continue in his development. And then if you play g6, then why you play bishop f5?
Then also bishop c4 is very strong, right? Because then you box in the bishop outside the pawn chain.
No, but also queen b3 is threat, because then...
double attack,
Double attack, yes. Uh-huh. So Hort played e6.
Now, Hort at this time is one of the world's Czechoslovakian grandmasters. He was one of the strongest players at one time during this period.
Yes, he was candidate. And
did he have any suspicion that he was already getting into a little difficulty?
I don't think at this moment he had the idea.
It was only after your next few moves that he began to realize there was a little drop of poison in this knight jump.
No, but probably he had in mind the position which we got, because he thought that
he thought Black was okay.
It would be close position, and then he could defend. Mm-hmm. But now we shall see how.
So now you start more or less a blitzkrieg attack, right? You played g4 and attack his bishop.
Bishop g6. If you play bishop e4, then f3. and then still you have to go back, or if you play here, then c4 and bishop is trapped.
Bishop is trapped.
Right.
This is even worse than being on the other side of the pawn chain.
So bishop g6, h4, and then Hort played h5. Then knight takes.
Now, of course, when you went h4, you're threatening to trap his bishop. So
Yes,
he had to do something.
h5, f3, and c4.
Right.
So I took on g6, pawn took, and then g5. So black played knight to d5. It's clear, because if you play just knight to d7, then white wins immediately with bishop d3. There's
simply no way to protect this.
No, that's right.
Next
right.
move, queen up, and the pawn is.
That's why he played knight to d5, and probably he had in mind this position, because then what happens? That you have good blockade on the white squares, and
all you have to do really is to defend your 2 points, and then everything is barricaded in.
yes, if you can bring knight e7 and f5, and if you can make queen d7, and if you castle, then black could be even better, because this pawn is weak. This bishop is good, but not so much
this pawn
future.
is backward on an open file.
Right.
And the block nature of the position, the bishops don't function so well.
Right. And then, for instance, if you have even bishop d6, then this bishop is bad. So it means that white must find something very quick and active.
So what you're saying here is white has actually compromised his structure, but he has a short-term initiative. But if you don't capitalize on this and make something out of it, then in the long term, black could actually have very good prospects.
Right. And so what happened that...
So you started out by playing queen c2 first to
Yes.
go after this.
Yes.
Okay.
Now,
How much time did you think? Do you remember how much time you spent on the next few moves? Because it seems like this is a critical moment in the game.
I think I spent a lot of time here, because I was not sure where I need my bishop, to h3, d3, or c4. And so...
He protected with king g7.
King f7, yes.
King f7.
And then I think I played rook
Rook
h3.
h3.
Rook h3. Of course, now I have threats, rook f3 and take on g6.
Now see here, Anatoly, most people looking at it, especially in a 5-minute game, they'd say, oh, the pawn on g6, I'll develop a piece, and they'll play bishop d3. They would develop a piece with a threat, and they would be very happy with themselves. But then after knight back and knight up, black would achieve the position that you were discussing, where he's
then you
barricaded
lose one tempo, which is decisive for this position.
Uh-huh.
If you are not too quick, then just one move can change the how to say
the evaluation of
the whole position. Yes.
So in the game, though,
Rook
you
h3.
after much thought, you decided on this very precise move order, rook h3.
Yes.
Okay.
And now I force black to retreat with the knight to
Because the
e7.
threat was simply to check and
Right.
come in. So now you apparently decided after all your deliberations that the bishop actually belonged on c4, because here it zeroes in on this very vulnerable point.
Yes. Now I have this threat, rook e3.
It's simply trying to win
And
the pawn.
if knight d5, then rook
And
f3.
you go back.
That's why black must play knight f5. And then rook f3. And so king cannot go to g8 because of this pawn.
So now his
Queen d7 is the only move.
Now, of course, his strategy basically is trying to barricade in on the light squares. We can see that he's putting all his pieces on the light squares, trying to create kind of a fortress.
Yes, and when I was thinking before queen c2 and then rook h3, it was not easy to understand that position is good, but probably position demands sacrifice. And so I had to discover for myself that without sacrifice of exchange on f5, I cannot break through.
And then you have no prospects.
Yes, and so this is not easy to understand immediately. It took a long time. But of course compensation is fantastic, but then when you sacrifice having such a nice position, you think, no, maybe it's easier to play another way. But when you realize, no, this is the only way, then you sacrifice.
So actually, not only is this good, the sacrifice, but it's actually quite necessary.
I think so.
So now, of course, this pawn is pinned, so he must take with the g-pawn.
G-pawn takes and queen takes
And
on
then
f5.
queen takes f5 check. Now the pawn is pinned by this bishop. So now we see why it was so important to put the bishop on this diagonal.
Yeah, just to have eye on the king on f7. So king h7, and then very important move, queen e4. Queen e4, not queen e5, because then in many variations black would have queen d6 with a tempo, or rook e8, and then king f7 and bishop d6. So queen e4 is much stronger.
Also, queen e4 keeps him from putting another pawn on g6.
On g6, yes. And I want to keep this square free for my bishop, bishop f4 and bishop e5.
So actually, every move here, it's very valuable to think exactly which precise square the piece belongs.
Yes. And so I think he played... no,
he played rook e8 here.
Rook e8, yes.
Okay, he wants to protect and try to run and hide with the king. And now you played bishop.
Bishop f4.
And now he tried to
king
run
d8 only move.
hide with the king.
Yes. So he wants to develop bishop on d6 and just to exchange. That's why queen e5. Now it's very strong. And at the same time, I don't allow king c8 because of mate on b8.
Okay.
And so he played rook to g8.
And now it's just a question of bringing your last piece into the attack.
And yes, even it's not so important that my king could be here or anywhere else, because important is development, and just I need
You need
one more
piece.
strong piece just to break the position. So this is long castle.
And this is not so bad too, just incidentally, to be opposite these guys.
So g6, this is the only way how to develop.
And now?
Rook e1, yes, this is very important. This is very important. Now pawn on e6 is hanging, and
very hard to defend.
yes. So bishop g7, and now it's very elegant with
an epaulette. So now here you
Yes.
played queen b8 check. Okay.
yes.
He played king up. And now, of course, most people at this point would expect you simply to take the pawn. And you've got two pawns, and this is still under attack, and that's quite nice. And of course,
yes,
that would lead
and
to a win
also
eventually.
winning. Also
Yes.
winning, yes.
But now instead, you played rook takes pawn check, right?
Yes, and so this is mate.
At first, this looks like a mistake because, well, your queen is under attack. It looks like he can simply take this. But in actuality, he resigned here.
Yes, he resigned because of two possibilities. So if king here, then the easiest way just to take on e8, queen takes on e8, and then bishop d6 mate. And if black would take on e6 with the queen, then queen c7 check. Only move queen d7. No,
Well,
if queen d7, then bishop d6 mate, which
Yes,
is also
this is
nice.
a finish that I like.
Yes, this
And
is
because
also
this
nice.
shows the bishop's working.
And if king f8, then there are
then-
two possibilities.
Well, bishop d6 check, perhaps.
yes,
And then if queen takes, and queen f7 mate.
this is the most easiest.
This
yes,
is it.
yes.
Probably the most
Which
fitting
Schwarz
conclusion.
didn't want to get
He
on the
didn't-
board.
He didn't want to see this on the demonstration board.
The greatest tournament in chess history, category 18, and all the leading chess masters or grandmasters were participating there, and I think that this tournament really was a fighting tournament. So many games with the result, no draws, and as you know, the organizer of this tournament, he hates the draws. Even
That's-
fighting draws he hates.
That's Louis Rentero, right?
Yes, Louis Rentero, yes.
I understand some players actually have in their contracts that they don't get paid if they make a short game.
No. This is other way around. He pays extra starting fee if you don't make draws, short draws, and if you promise you fight a full game.
Okay, so now before the tournament, Gary Kasparov made some comment. Gary, of course, won the tournament the last 2 years, right? With
Right.
very good scores, okay? And so he made a comment, since you had so many of the world's best players, that whoever won this should be world tournament champion, I believe, is what he said, something like this.
Yes, this year and previous year. But previous year we were fighting for the first place, and even 2 rounds before the end we had the same number of points. And then I had white pieces, and then I I wanted to get a lead, and I took risks too much. Then I lost the game, and then Kasparov won the tournament. But this year I was leading from the first round till the last one. I won 6 games in a row, and this was a game from round 7.
Round 7. So at this point, when you played Gary this time, you had black, but you also had a lead in the tournament.
That's right.
So for this situation, you felt the Caro-Kann was the appropriate defense.
But last games with him, I played Caro-Kann always, so there was no reason to change.
Okay, so after d4, d5. He plays the most standard way for white, with knight to d2.
Right, pawn takes.
Knight takes.
Knight takes, and then knight d7, and then this is...
Okay. Now, the other games we saw were with knight to g5, your game with Gadakamsky, and knight to f3 like you played against Hort.
That's right.
And Gary plays bishop c4.
So this is the most known and the oldest line for white. Knight g to f6, knight g5, e6, queen to e2, and it's well known since match for the world title between Tal and Botvinnik, 1960-61, 2 matches they played. So black plays knight to b6, bishop d3. Of course, this pawn is poisoned.
Okay, bishop d3 was a continuation in your games with Jan Timman from the FIDE World Championship, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, and now Gary instead plays the other variation, and the other alternative is bishop to b3, right?
That's right. And also you can take pawn on d4, because if queen
takes d4,
then white has tempo with knight to f3.
Let's say the queen goes back, or where else would the queen go? Let's say queen back home.
Then knight e5, and there is no protection for f7 pawn.
Okay, but of course that's a very basic trap. You didn't play queen takes d4 against Gary, right?
Of course not. Of course not. So this moment, h6 is necessary move, just to bring this knight back. Knight comes to f3.
And now you played an interesting move. a5. Can you tell us a little of the history about this move?
Yeah, this move is very important, because when you don't play a5, the main idea of white is just to have attack on the king's side, and normally black has short castle, and then bishop is very strong here, and this bishop is always threatening to take the pawn on h6, and then you have g4, h4, very active position. And in most variations, white just makes a long castle. a5 is fighting against the idea with long castle, because black is threatening to trap bishop on b3, and now there are 3 main variations: a4, c3, and a3. But what I wanted to say that a4, there was a famous game between Tal and Petrosyan. Petrosyan won this game, I think, in 20 moves. As black played c5, and then this was the line, bishop f4. And then white made long castle, and that moment black played c4, bishop took on c4, and knight took on a4, and then white position just collapsed. And that's why white started to play more carefully. And c3 is a nice idea, just to protect pawn on d4, and yes, to have this
bishop to come.
To have this possibility with bishop on c2.
Mm-hmm.
So c5 now.
Okay, but now Gary decided he wanted to play both, and he played a3. And Yasser Sarwan annotating gives us a question mark. Why does Gary play a3 here?
No, a3 is important because if you develop this bishop, then a4, a3 could be quite dangerous, and then white has problems with c3. For instance, if you play bishop f4, then this variation is quite possible. Then you play a3, and then b3 is the only move, and then black has another temp with bishop on f4, and then you have to come back with the bishop. So this is not so nice for white. That's why after c5, Kasparov played a3.
And what's your opinion of a3? You think it's necessary for white to play a3?
So this is not bad. This is not bad, and Kasparov played already this line against English Grandmaster Jonathan Spielman. Spielman played immediately a4, bishop c2, and then Spielman played a3.
That game ended in a draw?
Yes,
Gary,
yes. But white had better position, and then it was complicated, and then it was draw at the end.
So probably Gary was hoping to repeat that against you. And get similar type position.
Yes, maybe. But of course c5 is improvement, and clear improvement, c5. Then what c5, a3,
So you played
and
queen
then
c7?
queen c7. So I just keep this possibility a4 or c4, and not in all positions I need pawn on a4. Maybe I just will have opportunity later on to play b5 and b4. So I don't want to to make clear what I want to do on the queen side.
I see. So now Gary went straight ahead with knight to e5, but he has to do something to get the other knight out.
Yes, it's not clear what to do, because if you play bishop to e3, then knight goes to d5, and then bishop is attacked, and so black has
good activity.
Yes, sufficient position.
So Gary played knight here, and I guess Gary wants to just continue bringing the other knight out, castling, and still hoping for some attack on the king side.
Yes, Kasparov played at once knight e5, so it means that he analyzed this position at home. And so I took on d4, pawn took on d4, and then black played a4 now. Instead of a4, it was very funny tactical possibility. Bishop takes a3.
Now, of course, at first this looks incomprehensible, because not only can the rook take, but the pawn can take.
Yes.
So how does this tactic work?
So, of course, this pawn is well protected, and
so first rook takes doesn't work, right?
Yes. Then queen takes
then
c1.
Queen takes bishop here. Okay.
And it's quite clear.
This is quite good for you. Okay. So if pawn takes, then what happens?
Then queen gives check on c3, and this is fork.
And king and rook.
And king and rook.
Okay. However, you didn't play bishop takes a3 in the game.
I didn't play bishop take a3, and the funny thing was that in the press center, nobody saw bishop takes a3. I think only Lyubomir Lyuboyevich mentioned this possibility. But the first one who discovered this was Fritz, the computer program. And so it showed immediately, bishop takes a3 and black is better.
Now, of course, with the computer, if you're winning a pawn, you're better.
Yes, but this is not so clear, because after bishop takes a3, bishop takes h6. And then bishop takes b2.
So now you would call this desperados, right? Where once a piece is on pre, then you put another piece on pre.
Yes. Of course, if white takes on g7, then white is in bad shape, because bishop takes and then queen c1 check is threat, queen c3 check is threat. But white just recaptures bishop on b2, and then rook takes h6 only move, and then knight g1 to f3, and it's not clear how to get back this rook into the play, and so white has possibility of castle, and then rook c1, so there is pressure over a black position. And
continued, instead of playing bishop takes a3, you continued with a4.
Yes, I played a4.
This is just continuing more in a strategical main.
And I was thinking here for a long time, because it was not clear for me just to play a4 or to keep this again as a possibility. But then I decided e4, this is the moment for a4.
So he
Bishop
has a choice.
c2.
He went this way with the bishop.
No, there is no choice, because after bishop a2, bishop takes a3 is working already.
Now it's just simple.
Yes, now it's much better, because if he takes there, I just recapture, and it is not possible to take with the pawn because of check. Yes.
Okay. So he has No choice, actually.
No
He
choice.
simply has to
Bishop-
come back with the
Yes.
bishop.
Then bishop d7.
Now here he gave up his knight for your bishop.
Yes, I was a little bit surprised. So
Perhaps he should just continue and develop his knight? But he's worried about your rook coming
he
to
was
c8.
worried. Yes, he was worried about rook c8, and then two bishops
And
again.
we see after rook c8, this line. Yes.
Because if you play now bishop to d3, then queen takes c1 check, rook takes check, king d2 only move, and then rook takes rook. So black is winning. And maybe after rook c8, he had to play bishop d1, which is of course not dream he would have at home when he analyzed this position. So that's why he took on d7. I recaptured with knight, I believe.
This
Yes.
clears out the knight and allows for your b pawn to advance and leaves the other knight to come to d5, right?
And also I keep eye on f4. I don't allow bishop f4. See, queen is on c7.
Okay, now
And
he
here he played very funny.
played queen d1,
Yes.
but this seems a little strange.
No, but still, if knight f3, then what
Then
is possible?
Rook c8 is possible?
Must play bishop to d1, which is again
Yeah,
not,
we'll
not
just
so
show
nice.
that if bishop takes a4, now the pawn is still indirectly defended because of double attack.
Yeah, that's right.
So this is very important. So then he would have to play bishop back to d1, which again is very passive, right?
All right.
So instead, though, he played queen d1, right?
Queen to d1. Yes.
But did this move surprise you?
Yes. This is funny. That white has to play back with the queen, and but of course positionally this is not so bad because knight comes to e2 and then to c3 to attack these pawns. By chance, this is not so bad as it should be.
So actually, this is double-edged because the pawn cramps him, but it can also become very exposed and can become a liability if you're not careful.
That's right. That's right. Pawn on a4. That's why I was trying to say always at the beginning that this is not so easy to decide to push pawn on a4 or just to keep it on a5.
The pawn is the one piece that once you push it, you can't push it back.
Yes, never. This is a general rule.
So now you continued your development with bishop d6.
Yes, bishop d6, and probably it was not the most accurate way. I think I could play better. I could play b5.
Just immediately.
Yes, I wanted to keep this possibility, but then probably I needed to play first knight b6 or knight d5. After b5, then another knight on f6 on b6, and only after this to develop bishop. Because when I played bishop d6, I was not in time.
So you're saying you should have gone ahead and consolidated your grip on the queen side and then...
Yes, just to block the position with b5, knight d5, knight f6, just to put solid pressure, positional pressure, and then to develop bishop.
Okay. So now he played knight e2.
Knight e2, and then...
And here you played knight to d5, preparing to meet him.
Yes, otherwise he is threatening knight c3, and then I'm in trouble.
Taking
Yes.
this one.
Yes, so I have to play knight to d5. And then he played
Bishop to d2.
only move. Now pawn is
He's actually threatened.
under yes.
Before,
under
you always
attack.
had queen a5 check.
That's
Now
right.
bishop d2 stops your check.
And then I have to play b5. Then he played knight to c3. And what I was trying to tell, that instead of bishop d6, I could have knight on f6.
And then in this
see?
position, you simply could play rook over or
And
queen
in this
here
position,
and protect.
I just could defend the pawn. No, maybe with queen first. Queen c6. Just
pressure.
keeping pressure and pawn on g2, which was not so good for white. I had this threat. But now I have no time for this. And so I had to take on c3.
And he took with the bishop.
He took with the bishop.
And that threatens d5 to open.
Yes, to open everything. So I had to play knight to f6. So d5 now doesn't work because knight takes on d5. bishop takes pawn, and then rook g8.
Okay, so now he went ahead and went after your weak pawn with queen to d3. Okay.
Yes, queen to d3. Now d5 probably a threat.
Now, according to the press reports I read, this was a moment of big excitement in the press room. They were wondering how you're going to handle this because your pawn is under attack. And if you castle, then of course Gary loves to have two bishops aimed at your king, and then he might play pawn to d5 and try to attack you.
Yes.
So this is another exciting moment here.
Now, of course, I could play queen c6, but then white could make a castle because pawn is not attacked anymore, and then it's difficult for black to make a next move, because if you just bring knight to d5, then it's very difficult to castle. And white just could play rook to c1 and then bishop d1, bishop f3. But of course, I had in mind another idea.
So this is very much like your game with Kamsky now.
Yes. Yes.
Right here in the middle of everything, you move the last piece that we would expect.
Yes, he is attacking pawn. Just there is threat to take pawn with a check.
With check.
Yes, which is important. But then black doesn't pay attention. Knight d5. This is the most strong. So I keep control in the center. And if queen takes on b5 check, I play again knight king e7, like game with Kamsky you mentioned, and then there is no danger for black.
And now, actually, you would get a very powerful counterattack with the rook coming over, and you have everything.
To b8 or c8, two bishops, still two bishops on c line, c file. And so after this, Kasparov started to be in big trouble, and
he decided to save his bishop.
Yes.
After all, the only thing white has is the two bishops in this position.
Yes. So bishop d2 was the only move, and then again, I don't need castle. I just play king e7.
Okay, so now he tries to contest you on the c file with rook c1.
Rook c1, and then I played queen to c4.
Now here you offer the exchange of queens.
Yes, this is very important, because if I would play rook to c8, then Kasparov could play bishop to d1. Of course, there is possibility to sacrifice queen for rook and bishop, but this is not very clear. Black cannot lose, but probably black cannot win. That's why I wanted to keep.
So you wanted to keep the pressure on him.
Yes, queen to c4. And then I think now Kasparov made mistake. He played king to e2 instead of playing g3 immediately. After which black had pressure, but it was not clear how to win the game. And so after long thinking, Kasparov played king to e2. Of course, he doesn't want to make castle because of coming ending. He wants to have his king in the center, closer to weak pawns on the queen side. And so he played king e2, just having in mind probably the same idea I had. This was just bishop takes f4, rook d1, and then I could play rook d8. This is almost winning. I played rook h to b8.
So you played rook h b8 immediately?
Yes, and then Kasparov found a nice way how to almost defend the position, or no, it was g3.
Okay, and now you went ahead and exchanged queens.
Yes, I took. He took with the bishop, b4, and then after rook a1. Only theoretical advantage. I had to exchange on a3.
So you played b takes a3.
Pawn takes a3. Rook b3.
Rook b3. So now you actually win a pawn.
Yes. So just few moves. Bishop c2 only move. I take on a3. Rook, bishop, rook a1.
So now he regains the pawn on a4, but you still come out one pawn ahead.
Yes,
right?
he is losing this pawn.
So
but
here
it's
he
not
took this one, you exchanged, he took here, and you took here. Okay.
And then f4 is important. So on other level, probably black could win, but on the level of Kasparov, it's not possible to win such position.
And
It was draw just in maybe 10 moves.
Uh-huh. And so this game was actually a credit to both players. Very hard struggle, but it also shows the viability of the Caro-Kann defense.
Yes, again, we could see absolutely new ideas in this game.